Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're always trying to get to the bottom of things here, and today we're tackling something pretty big. Human societies.
Ooh, ambitious.
Well, we like a challenge here, but not just as, groups of people, but as these dynamic systems that are, always changing and evolving.
Sounds complicated.
It is. But that's why we have you here. We'll be looking at things like cities, economies, and cultures.
All systems in their own right. Yeah.
Exactly. And by the end, well, you might just start seeing the world a little differently.
I hope so. It's a fascinating way to understand how things work.
Okay, so before we get too deep, let's start with the basics.
Always a good place to start.
What exactly do we mean when we say system in this context? I mean, it's not like we're talking about computers or anything, right?
Right, not quite. Think of it this way.
Okay.
Your body, it's a system. It's got all these parts, heart, lungs, your brain, all working together.
Right.
But it's more than just the parts, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
It's how they interact, how they create something way bigger and more complex than just, adding them all up.
So it's about the interaction, creating something bigger than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And often those interactions, they lead to things you just couldn't predict.
Which is why it gets so complex.
Exactly.
So they've got these lots of different parts interacting in all these unexpected ways, but what makes it adaptive?
Okay, so think about like a colony of ants.
Ants.
Yeah, ants. They each have their little jobs, their behaviors, right?
Right.
But together, all those individual actions, they create this complex, self-organizing structure, The colony adapts.
Interesting.
Finds food, defends itself, all without some ant leader telling everyone what to do.
So one ant doesn't know the whole plan, but the colony as a system, it just works.
Precisely. And it's the same with human societies. All the individual actions, decisions, interactions, they all add up.
Wow.
They contribute to how the whole system behaves, even if no one person is in charge calling the shots.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is.
So how does all this apply to human society specifically? I mean, we're not ants, right?
True. We have a few more layers, but the principles, they're remarkably similar.
Okay.
Human societies, they also have this thing called emergent behavior.
Emergent behavior.
Yeah, meaning that what happens at the group level, it's not just predictable from how individuals act.
So it's kind of like the whole is greater than the sum of its parts again.
Exactly. The collective actions, they create these patterns and outcomes that you just wouldn't see by looking at individuals alone.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
But let's make this a bit more concrete, shall we? Our deep dive today focuses on three main examples of human societies as complex adaptive systems.
Right.
Let's start with cities. What makes a city a complex system?
Well, just think about it.
Okay.
The sheer diversity of people, the crazy web of infrastructure, the constant flow of goods and services and information.
Yes, cities are nonstop.
They're hives of activity, constantly adapting, They've got to deal with things like population growth, managing resources, and, of course, all the new technologies coming out all the time.
And it's not just the physical stuff, right? It's the social interactions, the culture, how information spreads like wildfire sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that example from that article we read
Okay.
about how rumors spread in a city?
Oh, yeah.
It shows how these random interactions, they can have these big system-wide effects.
It's true. It's like one person whispers something and suddenly the whole city's talking about it.
Exactly. It's amazing how those small actions, they create these bigger patterns.
It's fascinating.
And it's not just information. Think about traffic patterns.
Oh, yeah.
How people move around, how the city kind of pulses throughout the day.
It's like it has a rhythm.
There are definitely patterns there, even though no one's planning it all out.
It's like the city has a life of its own, almost like some kind of organism.
It's a great analogy. Cities, they're constantly evolving, responding to pressures, adapting to new challenges. It's amazing.
They have this dynamism, this energy that's it's a hallmark of complex adaptive systems.
Okay, so we've covered cities, these living, breathing systems.
It's a pretty good analogy, yeah.
But what about economies? How do they fit into this whole complex adaptive systems thing?
Ooh, economies. They're fascinating.
Right.
Think about all those people.
Yeah.
Millions of them making decisions every day about buying, selling, investing, producing things.
It's a lot.
All those interactions create this web of exchange, and that's what we call an economy.
Right, and all those individual decisions, they're based on so many things.
Oh, yeah.
Like personal needs, what's trending, government policy.
Exactly. All these factors swirling around.
Makes you dizzy.
And that's why economies are always fluctuating.
Yeah.
It's hard to predict what's going to happen next.
Which is why it's so hard to, Know when the stock market's going to crash or when we're headed for a recession.
Yeah, economists, they try to model these systems, create these fancy equations.
Right. But there are just so many variables.
Too many to keep track of.
It's impossible to capture everything.
So are you saying that economies, they just kind of do their own thing?
In a way, yeah. The way they behave, it often defies simple explanations.
So thinking of economies as complex adaptive systems, does that help us understand them better?
I think so, yeah. It helps us make sense of things like, well, like you said, market volatility, financial crises,
Yeah.
even just our own personal finances.
So it's not just for like the bigwigs on Wall Street?
No, not at all. It encourages us to think bigger, beyond just cause and effect.
So like, don't just look at the price tag. Think about all the things that went into making that product.
Exactly. Consider how everything's connected.
I like it. Okay, so we've got cities, economies.
What else is there?
Well, how about cultures? Where do they fit into all of this?
Cultures. Oh, they might be the most dynamic and fluid systems of all.
Really?
Think about it. Language, beliefs, values, customs.
Traditions, art, music.
You got it. All those things, they make up a culture, and they're constantly evolving.
It's true, like slang.
Yeah. New words pop up all the time.
And the internet, it's like it's put everything on fast forward.
It has, hasn't it? Before, changes happened gradually. Now it's just boom.
Instant, yeah.
The internet, it's like this mixing bowl of ideas, influences, trends.
You get a little bit of everything.
It's a perfect example of how, when things are more connected, the system becomes more complex and dynamic.
Think about music.
Yeah, good example.
Different genres blending, new technology, changing how music is made.
How we listen to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the result is that music's always changing, evolving.
And never sit still.
And it's not just music, right? Fashion, language, how we communicate.
All constantly evolving, responding to everything, really.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is. It shows how adaptable cultures are.
Okay, so we've seen how cities, economies, cultures, they all function as complex adaptive systems.
Now it's changing, yeah.
But this is all pretty big picture stuff, right?
Right.
It is, yeah. How can understanding this help us in our own lives? Like, what's the takeaway for the listener?
Well, it helps us think differently, It's like putting on a new pair of glasses. Oh. You start to see these connections, these patterns that you might have missed before.
I like that.
It can help us make sense of our own lives, understand those big global events that are always happening.
Right, right.
And even make better choices.
So, like, how does that work in practice? Can you give me some specific examples?
Sure. Let's say you're thinking about changing careers.
Big decision.
It is. Now, someone who's just thinking in a straight line, they might just focus on salary, or the job title.
Yeah, makes sense.
But a systems thinker, they're going to take a step back.
Okay.
They'll look at the bigger economic picture, what skills are in demand,
Right.
What are the long-term trends in that industry.
Makes sense.
They'll even think about how that career fits with their values, their aspirations.
So it's about, like, seeing the whole forest, not just the one tree.
Exactly. Or think about personal finance.
Oh, yeah, something we all struggle with.
A systems thinker, they're not just going to focus on cutting back on their daily latte.
No more lattes?
Well, maybe fewer. But they'll also look at their income, their savings goals, how they're investing,
Right.
and how all of that is affected by, the bigger economic forces at play.
It's like zooming out to see the whole financial ecosystem, not just your little bank account.
Precisely. And this way of thinking, you can apply it to so many areas of life.
Really?
Relationships, your health, how you're involved in your community.
Wow.
Anywhere where there are, a bunch of factors all interacting.
So basically everywhere.
Pretty much. It's about recognizing that we're all part of these systems.
Right.
Our actions, they have these ripple effects, even if we don't always see them.
So it's like we're all connected.
We are. And by understanding those connections, we can make a more positive impact.
It's a powerful way to look at the world, I give you that.
It is.
So let's recap. Today we've been exploring human societies as complex adaptive systems.
From those bustling cities to those crazy economies.
And those ever-changing cultures.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But we've seen how individual actions contribute to these bigger patterns, how systems adapt and change.
And how understanding all of this can help us make better choices.
I think you've given our listeners a lot to think about today.
I hope so.
That's it for our deep dive today. We hope you enjoyed exploring these ideas with us. Remember to stay curious, keep those brain gears turning, and see if you can spot these systems at work in your own life. Until next time.